Welcome, everybody, to the show. Joining us is our regular co-host and fellow traveler, Dan the Dan Noodles Man, the Rin Tin Tin of wargaming. And joining us as our very special guest from sunny Southern Ohio is Mr. David Thompson. David, thanks again for coming in. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So we're going to talk about... Oh, go ahead, Dan.
How far do you guys live apart?
About 3 hours now.
That's not bad.
More or less. Nah, it's not too bad. Dave's at the southern end of the state, southwestern end of the state. I'm at the northeastern end of the state, more or less.
Dave, did you lose weight or what?
I mean, I don't know. I think I'm about the same.
Yeah, I hate people like you know?
Well,
So anyway, we're going to talk about sci-fi war games tonight. So David, I don't know that we've ever had a conversation about this before. So tell me about your background in and experience with and preferences for science fiction in general, not just games. We'll get into the games too.
yeah. So I mean, I'm sort of like the typical Gen X dude. You know, I grew up on Star Wars, Star Trek, etc. In general, when it comes to sci-fi, my preference is something a little like more hard sci-fi though, like Expanse, Battlestar Galactica. That's more of my thing. Really enjoyed both of those series, actually. The Battlestar Galactica reboot and especially the later seasons of Expanse, I thought were fantastic.
Oh, okay, fair.
Yeah. Not the later seasons of Battlestar Galactica. No, God, no.
No, that turned stinky after.
That's not a two-player game now, is it?
I don't think so. No, I don't think I think it's a hidden
No.
enemy type
No, the game, no.
mechanic.
Yeah.
So you can't. I mean, you could play it, but you better have split personalities.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's where generally speaking, that's my preference. Is something a little harder, a little more military, gritty sci-fi.
Okay.
I think that's totally understandable. I don't know that I'm necessarily into military sci-fi, actually, oddly enough. I feel like I get my fix for that type of material elsewhere, but I do like the hard stuff. I've read the first 6 Expanse books and liked them very much, which is approximately as far as they got with the series as well. So,
Didn't John Butterfield do a game on that Expanse series?
Jeff Engelstein.
Jeff Engelstein did, yeah.
Okay, I'm talking about Space
Space Corps. Space Corps.
That's not directly based on anything, though. But I wouldn't call it a war game, but it's really more of an economic and development game.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a really good game.
It's good. It's fun.
Yeah, but yeah, not a war game at all.
It's John Butterfield. I mean, John Butterfield does not design bad games, as far as I'm aware. So,
have you played all 3 eras?
I have. I've played pretty much every configuration. My personal preference is to play Era 1 and 2. I think that Era 3 is good, but I think it could be a little bit long, and I think you get the bigger return on investment by playing the first 2 eras. But I've played all 3.
Mm-hmm. I haven't
really
played
good
the first one, but I liked it.
And does it play well, a 2-player game?
I mean, it plays okay, but I mean, I think it plays better with 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which is pretty typical, but there's a whole solitaire mode in the box too. So if you don't, which is almost like a completely parallel game, but it's pretty strong. I mean, you could easily play it with 2, but that kind of game's just going to be better with 4 people, I think. I don't think there's an expansion plan that will bring us 5 and 6 players. I don't think. But
not that I know of.
It didn't occur to me to ask either, so I could be wrong. Oops. Miraculously, my computer has not yet crashed during this show today. It crashed immediately before the stream.
So Dave, let me ask you the first question on your new sci-fi game, which is called Callisto.
Yeah, Undaunted 2200 Callisto. Yep.
Okay,
that's coming out from Osprey, right?
It is. Yeah.
Okay, figured.
Okay, so can I assume that this is the way it went when you were asked?
Actually, on Callisto.
Did Osprey come up to you and say, "Hey, look, we got a bag of money, man, and your system there and Benjamin's system." Am I right, Benjamin?
Trevor Benjamin. Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So we're gonna throw a whole boatload of money on you, and let's go.
That's absolutely correct, except for the boatload of money.
except for the boatload of money.
There was no boatload of money.
Yeah, I think I've probably told you guys about this before, but Osprey, of all the publishers I work with, they are by far the most regimented, and they have an extensive schedule. They stick to it. So we're usually designing about 2 years ahead of time. And so a few years ago, literally about 3 years ago now, we met to plan out the next, whatever at the time, 5 years of Undaunted. And at the time, as is talked about still right now, the big things being asked for were Pacific, right? Undaunted Pacific, a lot of people want. But but there was a lot of people who said, "Hey, I'm interested in Undaunted. I hear all this good stuff about it, but I don't really want to play a historical war game. I want to experience the system in a different way." And that happened at the same time that I've been pretty vocal about this. Like Trevor and I, this is our 6th Undaunted game, right? And so you don't want to go back and redo the same thing over. You want something different to not lose your sanity. And so it was fun for us to be able to play with something completely new.
Makes complete sense. And what you're saying about Osprey also makes complete sense, since they've been in business since 1968. So that's that's the actual date, by the way. They've been around forever.
Now the board game division, they're coming up on their 10th year anniversary. But of course,
I guess I'm not surprised by that, because they have a lot of stuff. They got a lot of games.
Yeah. Now here's the funny thing: I pitched them Undaunted the year that they started. Their first spiel was the spiel that I pitched it to them. So
10 years ago.
So you gave them your spiel at Spiel.
I gave them my spiel at Spiel. Yeah.
I couldn't resist.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah, that's right. So next year will be their 10-year anniversary, summer of 25, for the board game division, Osprey.
They do a lot of different. Does the game? Do they have a separate division for their RPG content?
So the way that they're structured is the guy that's in charge. There's one guy in charge of games. That includes RPGs, miniatures, war game rules, and board games. But within that, there are 3 developers solely dedicated to board games. Those are the people I work with.
Okay.
So there's kind of like 2 groups within the one games division.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. What? Go ahead, Dan.
Because you said Undaunted Pacific. How does that work?
Well, I mean, we haven't made it, so I don't know how it works. Here's the thing:
we'll have you back on when you have. How about that?
I know. Well, here's the thing, right? When I say Undaunted Pacific to you guys, now keeping in mind we've made Battle of Britain, which are flying planes. Okay, so it's not always just dudes, ground, small skirmish level dudes. So what does that mean? I think not the problem, but the interesting design challenge is Undaunted, quote unquote, Pacific for one person means something completely different to another. Or is it troops doing amphibious assaults? Is it carrier battles? Is it there's just so many different things that it means to different people. Right. So
you could have a whole 6-game series inside the series of various
aspects
of the Pacific, right?
Yep.
So. I mean, you could. The possibilities are endless with the basic mechanics that you got going on.
No, it's true
here.
though, but it is. It's endless.
David, did you ever play any of the classic SPI or Avalon Hill science fiction games?
I was going to ask you that.
No. So here's the thing, right? So you guys got to remember that the year I pitched Undaunted to Osprey, so 2014, was the year I started designing, and it was only a year or two after I started playing board games. So I did not grow up in the era. So Gary, when you were making your quick videos, right, your short 1-minute videos and stuff, and you're showing the classics, oftentimes that's my first introduction to a game. Now I will give a plug really quickly. There you see that. So I will give a plug really quickly on the topic of Avalon Hill specifically. I did not know this until about a month ago, but the guys with the Legendary Tactics YouTube channel, I don't know if you guys. Right, so they have one of the guys did a 8-part series, I think, on the history of Avalon Hill. Oh my God, man! Oh my God,
that's very well done. Their Victory Games history with Mark Herman was really good as well.
So that's how I found. So I watched the Victory Games episode, And I reached out to him on Twitter. I said, "This is amazing. This is everything. I was a guy who didn't get to grow up on this stuff. This is what I want more of. Can you please do more?" And they were like, "Have you seen our Avalon Hill series?" Which I had not. And so then I proceeded to consume, 8 episodes of Avalon Hill history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good content. It's they talk not only about the company history, but they also talk about the games, which I find really valuable. I was fortunate enough to grow up with a decent chunk of Avalon Hill games, but even there's still tons of Avalon Hill classics that I never played. I never played or Gettysburg 65, or for that matter, I haven't played Gettysburg, whatever the one they did in the 80s was. I never played their Bulge game, never played Africa Corps. There's a whole bunch, never played Russian campaign until literally earlier this year. So, it's easy to miss stuff, right?
Man, are you talking about the flat boxes?
Some of them were flat. Most of the ones I just listed were flat boxes, oddly enough. I never had any of those as a kid, any of those flats. I only had the bookcase boxes because that was generally what they sold at like a toy store or Sears or J.C. Penney, where you could get some of that stuff back in the day.
Well, did you play? Did you play Dr. Ruth's game?
I did not. But thank you for mentioning it since Mark's here. Mark has told. I mean, if you watch the video games, Dr. Ruth who just passed away, by the way, like in the last 6 weeks or so. And apparently she was exactly what she appeared to be, a sweet old lady. So
I think she was feisty.
Yeah. Now, I was also lucky enough to, very early on, this had been in like very early 80s, 82, 83 or something like that. I was fortunate enough to kind of be bequeathed the Star Force trilogy from SPI, which one of Star Force back behind me is one of them. And that's a big 4-inch soapbox with 3 sci-fi games in them, 2 of which are really pretty. One of which is neat and interesting, one of which is awesome, and the third is kind of a dud. But still, I would have called that a formative experience at the time. And I still had that up until maybe 2007, when it was sitting in a pile in a basement, and it got some water on it, and nobody noticed it for months, and it was black mold growing everywhere on it, and it had to be tossed. So this is true. It was really routine to go to like big box toy stores at the time. Children's Palace was the one we went to from time to time. And they'd have D&D stuff, and they'd have Avalon Hill stuff, and in addition to like the game and hobby stores and stuff like that. I'm not a big fan. I think Starship Troopers was better. Let me put it that way. So I kind of respect what they were trying to do with Star Soldier more than I think it was effective at it. So, but how about the fantasy? I assume the answer is probably no to the fantasy games as well, then, right? And is there an Undaunted fantasy game coming?
I'll show this off. I just received this in the mail today. My copy came. I'm just going to enjoy Undaunted Sci-Fi right now before we start worrying about what's in the future. But I'll see. So, here's what's interesting from a personal perspective. So no, I mean, I didn't. The only thing I played other than RPGs growing up that was close to a board game were things that were popular enough to somehow get outside into like the stores where you'd find comics and RPGs and stuff. So, do you guys remember the Mage Knight Clicks game?
Oh yeah,
right.
Never played it, but I remember it.
Right, so it was super popular when it came out in the '90s, late '90s, and so that was popular enough that it got out, and I played it. Blood Bowl, of course, things like that were super popular that were outside of the board game hobby and got into the broader RPG stores and stuff. Mm-hmm. But here's what's an interesting thing that it's sort of my board game design origin story is that the first game I ever started working on is the game that would eventually be published by DVG as For What Remains, which is like a post-apocalyptic. It is a post-apocalyptic war game, right? And so. The thing that's interesting about it is I started working on it before I started playing board games, and it was inspired by stuff like D&D. It was inspired by like Mage Knight, and then like tactical RPG video games. And so people that have played it, and it's not like very big seller or anything like that. So not many people have seen it, but people that have played it, I think that the inspirations for those are pretty obvious. But I started designing it, then I learned about the board game hobby, and so as I continued to design it, then I started integrating wargame concepts into that. So it uses CHIT pool, for example, right? So things that came from being introduced to wargames got sort of backported into the design. So that was actually the first game that I designed, even though it was published after a couple of others. So it's kind of interesting now to be able to go back and revisit some sci-fi roots back to sort of where I came into the hobby.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So
Dave,
how do you?
Sorry, Artie. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Dan.
You mentioned video games. Are you playing any video game right now?
So I have not played video games since like the early 90s, like since PlayStation 1 first came out. It was about when I stopped playing.
Oh my God.
Now here's the funny thing. I probably mentioned this to you guys before, at least maybe, I don't know, but you know, I designed Sniper Elite, right, which is a board game based on a video game. And so the funny thing about that is Rebellion, which is a big UK company, media company, when they established their board game company, they reached out to me and asked me to design that game. So that's how I got brought in to design it. I had to go buy an Xbox and buy the game and play the game so that I could design the board game for the game. I had not owned the video game since like the 90s before I went and bought that.
So Rebellion Games.
Research. That's called research. Yeah, I believe it's a tax deduction.
Yeah, but they didn't buy you the game. I mean,
so they gave me they whatever they bought the game, but I mean I went and bought the Xbox, but I did write it off as a tax deduction. I mean I used it for one thing, literally one thing, right? So
can I have your Xbox?
It's old now. It's whatever. It's like 7 generations old, but you can have it. Nobody uses it.
I don't play video games very much just because of time, right? I mean, they can suck a lot of time away, and I'll noodle around here and there. But I mean, the only video game I've played in probably the last 4 years with any degree of intensity at all was Starfield science fiction. How about that?
Yeah. Now, every once in a while, I'll stumble on something, usually on my Mac. So, like, do you guys know Into the Breach, which is sort of an indie game? It's like a little indie. Do you guys know the Advance Wars series that was on some of the Nintendo games from back in the day?
Yeah,
it's a little turn-based tactical games. Mm-hmm. It's something like that that's like super addictive. I get into it for like a few days and then I'm out. And then of course like Slay the Spire, things like that.
I've heard good things about that. I haven't played it. It doesn't look like the kind of thing I would be willing to like dedicate time to. And if I'm not going to dedicate time, I'm not going to dedicate the money either, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So in any case, the beard not appearing in this picture is the answer to this. My local actual, somebody mentioned KB Toys. That was my local game store as well. I'm curious to know which suburban mall that was located in, actually. But how do you feel like the sci-fi wargaming space has changed over, say, the last 20 years? Because, I mean, we used to see, this isn't Hex and Counter, but it's designed, other than not having hexes on the map, it's designed like a wargame, right? And we used to see a fair amount of traffic on that. We tend to see, not zero, but a lot less now than we used to. It feels like most of the sci-fi games are targeted at a broader audience than wargames are capable of providing.
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, if you, I want to tangent on what is and isn't a war game, right? Because obviously that's the conversation we don't want to. That would be the conversation. But if you go and look at the board game, if all you do is go to Board Game Geek and you search for a category of sci-fi, and then in the war game subdomain, the games that come up are things like X-Wing and Star Wars Armada. Those are the top ranked games. And I personally don't think of those as war games. I think of those as like miniatures games or whatever. It's Space Empires 4X is the top ranked sci-fi war game according to BGG's ranking. So
that's because those Philistines have not yet played Freedom in the Galaxy.
Well, apparently we need to play Freedom in the Galaxy at Buckeye Game Fest.
We could. I have a copy.
I'm down.
I could do that. I'm going to insist that you play in the Traveler game at the next Buckeye Game Fest as well, David. FYI on that.
I'm in. We
had a fabulous time with that.
I'd love to. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Hearts of Iron 3 was awesome, by the way, Vincenzo. I loved Hearts of Iron 3. I never did play with the Black Ice mod, but Hearts of Iron 4, I didn't care for it. Some people like it. That's great for them. I did not. So still put 25 hours into it, but I didn't like it.
But I think to answer your question, I think that when was the last actual science fiction? I mean, what's it called? Burning Banners but that's fantasy.
Fantasy,
So
That's a real legit.
But it's a war game.
War game,
like an actual war game. Yeah.
And fantasy, especially, we've seen even fewer. I mean,
I know. Yeah.
Space Empires 4X, I think, has been the kind of the torchbearer in war game science fiction for a while, or at least traditional war game science fiction for a while. But at least we've had that, right? We haven't had much in the way of fantasy. Somebody's designing a fantasy game, they're going to pack it full of miniatures and have a $3 million Kickstarter and do all that jazz. Because why would you want the pocket full of couch change that you can make in wargaming?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the issue, right? When you pitch,
that's
Undaunted...
my KB hobby. By the way, Mark McNair, that was my KB hobby at Midway Mall in Illyria, and yes, they had GDW, Europa, Starfleet battles, all that stuff. So when did
KB Toys stop selling war games?
The whole chain went under, and that was in roughly 1990, give or take 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I vaguely remember. I was born in '79, so I remember KB Toys, but I definitely don't remember them carrying. I don't remember them carrying board games, war games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, no, they didn't have as much war game, but they had BattleTech and stuff like that. Now that's another space in which a wargamier flavor of sci-fi has endured, right?
Yeah.
With miniatures, especially with 40K. Do we consider 40K science fiction? I
think
guess
so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess.
And Stargrave is super popular. So I think that segment, the miniatures wargaming thing is thriving. But yeah, you mentioned it a minute ago, and I think it's the important thing is if I'm sitting down to design a board game and I'm thinking, oh, I want this to be a sci-fi game. As soon as you put it into the war game realm, you have to understand that you're fragmenting a huge section of the audience, right? So it's just an important decision to make.
Vincenzo, this is because Howie Barish was the lead designer on both games, I'm pretty sure. So, Starfire, terrific game out of Task Force Games originally, I think. Have you done any Starfleet battles? Because we could probably talk you into that at Bucket Game Fest as well.
You know what? I have not played Starfleet battles, but this reminds me of what is the name of the game? I'm embarrassing myself. It's a big whiteboard, and you plot out. Oh God,
Triplanetary.
Triplanetary. Oh my gosh,
a Mark Miller classic.
That is amazing. That game is absolutely amazing. I've only played it a few times, but what an experience!
It's a fascinating. It's really pretty neat, especially when you consider it was published in 1973 or 74. It's really quite a neat game. It's too bad Steve Jackson took 30 years to do a new edition of it, but hey, it's out now, so there's that. Interestingly enough, I was doing some scripting earlier today, and I wrote the Triplanetary section of that script, talking about Triplanetary. It's a fascinating game.
It's so good. It's so good. I would play that. That is typically, once a year I meet with some buddies at a cabin in West Virginia to do our gaming weekend, and that's always my most requested. The thing I'll play whatever you guys want to play as long as we get one game of Triplanetary in. So
fair. That is fair. I've actually never played it. I've owned it in the, I think, 1981 GDW flat version. The original version from the early 70s came in a triangular mailer. That's 3 feet long, and you had to roll it up, and it came with grease pencils and stuff. It's absolutely unique publication at the time.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first 1 or 2 or maybe 3 things that GDW did too.
So was the surface dry erase then?
Yep.
Wow, that's awesome. Yep. That's really cool. Undaunted Camelot. There we go.
There you go. Yeah. Why not? Because why not? Hey. David's jotting this down in his dictionary of ideas. So, go ahead, Dan.
How good is Osprey at reprinting?
So the Undaunted games stay in print. I don't think they've ever been out of print long. So
I'm just going to point out that this is a sore spot for the fans of Multi-Man Publishing's various product lines.
and what about the Battle of Britain? That's still obtainable?
Oh yeah.
That's
Yeah, all
that
of
just
those
came
are out
out
there.
like last year, right?
Yeah, it came out last year. That was last year's release.
Mm-hmm.
I bugged the guy at Osprey. What's his name, for God's sakes?
Benji.
David. Hey,
Benji.
Benji. Yeah,
Benji?
I bug that guy all the time.
Benji?
Benji.
That is the least British name I have heard in at least a month.
Benji, man.
I expected him to be named Nigel Higginbottom or something like that. I would say no. This is supposed to. Have you played this, David? By the way, CHIT Imperium.
Yeah. I would not call it a war game. It's a great game. I enjoy
I've
it.
heard it's good. I have
It's
it.
really
I
good.
just haven't played it.
It's really good. It's I mean, it is a deck building, worker placement Euro game, but it's got some conflict in it. Very, very good game. I like it a lot. It's one of my group's most played games, as a matter of fact.
Operational science fiction games. I'm not sure I can think of any offhand. There's plenty of strategic ones, and there's plenty of tactical ones. Plenty being a relative term here, I suppose. Maybe the closest thing I could think of might be something... Maybe something like Stellar Horizons. That's probably about as close as I can. Have you tried that, actually? Because I like that.
No.
That's out of Compass as well. It's not a war game, but it's designed in a very wargamey way by a veteran who actually designed the World War I version of World in Flames. So he's got cred as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And the Avalon Hill Dune, now republished by Gale Force 9. I assume you've played that as well.
Yes.
That's terrific.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
now the Starship Troopers, who was that? Avalon Hill?
Yep.
And is what scale is it?
It's tactical.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I forget whether it's like squads or small units or individual troopers, because remember that the individual troopers are supposed to have the firepower of like an entire battalion from the book. So it could be individual dudes in power armor.
You know, it's funny because I've never read, this is sacrilege, I know, I've never read Starship Troopers. I've only seen the movie.
Oh,
and so,
boy.
I know.
That's a different experience.
So, but my co-design partner, Trevor Benjamin, he's huge into it. Like when we first started conceptualizing Undaunted Callisto, if we could have done it as Starship Troopers, that would have been his IP of choice. That's his shtick. For sure. He's always talking about
money,
Starship Troopers. Yeah. Yep.
How much
money can it cost for the license? Osprey's loaded.
Well, Osprey's loaded, but they got to make their money back too. I don't know.
Screw the money.
Although
Get the license.
not that many years ago, although it's probably more like 10 or 15 years ago, Mongoose Publishing actually had a license for Starship Troopers, and they did a miniatures game and I think an RPG line as well. I think I never took any interest in that. I like the book, but and I like the movie for completely different reasons. But I don't know, and I like the Avalon Hill game. I'm not sure who designed that Avalon Hill game. Randy Reed, maybe something like that. I can look it up.
Well, speaking of sci-fi RPGs, have you played or are you familiar with the Expanse RPG?
I've heard of it.
I have looked at it. I have not played it. It is from Green Ronin. It's got a couple of mechanics that look fairly interesting. Other than that, and the books look good. And I think there's a new edition of it coming.
I saw that. That's what prompted the question. I saw an advertisement for the new edition for it. So
yeah, it's supposed to be good.
That's definitely, not that I play RPGs. I would love to, but I just don't have time.
And your copious free time.
I know. But that would be a setting I'd love to play in. That'd be really cool.
I could see getting mileage out of that as a setting. That makes complete sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite sci-fi movie, David?
This is interesting.
That's not fair.
I'm about to ask you too, Dan. So start thinking about it.
Okay, here's a question for you. Does Predator is sci-fi, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen Prey?
I haven't actually. I haven't had the time.
With Adrian Brody?
No,
this came out in the last year or two.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be really good. It was a streaming film from Apple TV or Paramount, Hulu. There you go.
Hulu. So what's her name? Is it Amber Mid Thunder? I might be wrecking that.
Yeah, something like that.
I think that's her name. So it's phenomenal. It's set in the 1730s. It is phenomenal. So
yeah,
it's
I
probably
think during the French and Indian War, right?
Well, prior to the French and Indian War, technically, yeah. And so it's
I was right.
It's amazing.
Randy Reed designed Starship Troopers.
There you go. Nice, nice. But yeah, I would say that if the Predator series counts in my sci-fi quote unquote sci-fi movie can be set in the 1730s, that would be it because that movie is just amazing.
I have no issues with that at all. Dan,
What?
what's your favorite sci-fi movie?
Ah, come on. What's my favorite sci-fi movie? It's like asking me who's my favorite composer.
Well,
or,
at the moment, right? I mean, we're not going to make you sign a contract in blood on pain of death, but depending on your answer here, give me an answer.
Jesus. You know what? I really would you call Stalker a sci-fi movie by Tarkovsky?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
That's pretty damn good.
That's
man.
based on the novel Roadside Picnic by Arkady and Boris Strugatsky, who I might have been Russian, may have been Polish. I'm not entirely sure about that. But
well,
it's,
if he was Russian, if he was Polish at that time, he was Russian. Joking.
Yeah, more or less. Soviet era science fiction film
But
from
I mean,
the early
it's-
70s, I want to say.
But you know what? It's like Blade Runner, man. Seriously, you know that's a hell of a movie, man.
Yeah, there's no like spaceships and stuff in that.
Nah, but you know, well, I mean, Stalker. So you see where I'm going with this. My favorite, Bang 'Em Up.
Good catch, Jeff Baylor. I should have thought of that. Go ahead, Dan. Bang 'em up.
Christ, nah, I don't know.
I'm going to be boring and probably say 2001: A Space Odyssey, probably. But
I mean,
it is a bit of
holy cow!
It is
you
a bit of
gotta
a
do mushroom. You got to do mushrooms to watch.
I mean, admittedly, that would help with the experience.
Well,
Damn right it would.
At least at the end.
Here's something a little mind blowing, and you guys will think I'm lying to you and I'm crazy. But it wasn't until the last week that I ever watched Alien and Aliens.
Oh, really?
Yep.
You got to be kidding me.
I finally watched them, and they are phenomenal. Especially
No,
Alien. I mean, they're both good, but Aliens was like next level good.
Yeah,
it's
they're
real
very
good,
different
real good.
films.
They're very different.
Really.
Yeah, they're very different.
I've heard
I-
that this new one, Alien Romulus, is pretty good, but it kind of rehashes the first 2 or 3 movies as well.
Yeah.
But
What
if
about
it doesn't
that movie
suck like Prometheus, I'll be happy.
what about that first movie with Vin Diesel there?
Pitch Black, great movie.
Pitch Black.
Oh,
And
Pitch Black's great.
That
Pitch Black.
That movie is so Traveler. That movie is amazingly
really?
Traveler.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wait, which one is Pitch Black?
Pitch Black. Yeah, the
Really?
sequel
Okay.
is the sequel
Yeah.
is way more 40K.
Yeah. No, Pitch Black was amazing. Yeah. Wow.
Mhm. The Forever Wars by Joe Haldeman is another good one. I have to admit.
So,
what-
David, the game, the Callisto game, there's no IP to it, obviously.
No. So interesting thing about IP. This is my opinion. And of course, keep in mind that I've worked on. I guess Sniper Elite's the only one, but there may be stuff in the future. But I kind of feel like there's a few IPs that are like so huge that it's going to sell your game big time, regardless of how good the game is or isn't. Right. So the Lord of the Rings, the Star Wars is blah blah blah. Right. Those are going to sell. But unless you have one of those massive IPs, I think that sometimes having an IP, like it's not a huge draw because, you know, a lot of people's reaction to Sniper Elite, since I worked on it, and I know this firsthand. A lot of people are like, "I played the board game; it's really good. I enjoyed it. I don't care. I don't even know about the video game, right?" But it didn't like bring a ton of people in to play it because of the name. And so I don't know that seeking out an IP is necessarily great, and certainly. I mean, there's pros and cons from a design inspiration perspective, right? Obviously, designing within constraints is good, but in this case, it was nice to be sort of liberated and just say what we can kind of set our own. You know, we create our own world, and this goes back. You know, I grew up on RPGs. This goes back to I get to do a lot of world building in it, and that was super fun. And that's not something I get to do very often. So that was probably the thing I most enjoyed about the game was not the game design part, was the world building behind the scenes.
I think that makes complete sense. Ice Pirates, by the way, is one of my favorites, actually. I think it's a tremendously enjoyable movie. It is not 2001, A Space Odyssey, but it's a lot of fun.
Ice Pirates, very schlocky.
Yeah, very schlocky, but in a good way. I found it highly entertaining. I haven't seen it in a long time. It's got Angelica Houston in it, and Matuzak, John Matuzak is in it, the football player. So it's a pretty interesting movie. So a lot of fun. With this mention, there is actually a shout out in one of the early episodes of Picard season 1 on the Kzinti. It's the only time they've ever been mentioned in Star Trek on screen, as far as I'm aware. And everybody noticed it.
I never read any Larry Niven, man.
He's good. He's
the Ringworld guy, no?
That's the guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is supposed to be good. I should watch. I don't have time, man. I keep signing myself up for additional projects. I started another YouTube channel, for God's sake. What a terrible idea. This is a fantastic book, by the way. Blade Runner is also a completely reasonable choice.
And the new one's good, too.
It is a good one. It's quite different. I thought it was tonally quite different, but it's not less visually striking. It's a really impressive movie in a lot of ways. I'm not a big fan of Ryan Gosling, though. He's just so punchable, you know? He's just so punchable. Possibly the most punchable actor working in Hollywood today. So, but everybody seems to love him. Wizards, if we're talking about the Ralph Bakshi Wizards, that's interesting.
The cartoon one is fantastic.
Yeah, Fire and Ice is actually pretty good too, but that's straight fantasy. Wizards is kind of a blend. So, a lot of Alien, lot of Blade Runner. These all make complete. Ooh, Outland, David, have you ever seen this?
I have not seen Outland. No,
great movie.
No.
It's a totally a space western with Sean Connery. It's basically High Noon in space with explosive decompression and Sean Connery. It's fantastic.
Speaking of space westerns, nobody's mentioned Sci-fi or Firefly or Serenity. Yeah,
I talk about Traveler every day, so I'm covered.
That's fantastic. Firefly for me was fantastic, and so was Serenity.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, Arrival's a really good movie. If I can't highly recommend enough Ted Chiang as an author. He wrote the story that Arrival was based on, and while the movie's really good, the story is arguably even better. And if you buy the collection, every other short story in that collection is just as good as the story of your life, which is the story that Arrival is based on.
Oh, Three Body Problem, I thought was really good too.
I haven't read the book. I've kind of bounced off the audiobook, but I liked the Netflix series.
I did too.
Pretty good.
I did too. Yeah, sorry, Dan. What were you gonna say?
A DTA on your game.
It's September 10th in America, 12th in the UK. I may have that reversed. It's September 12th and 1. It's in a couple of weeks. It's in a couple of
weeks.
weeks.
Have you looked at your?
That is a couple of weeks from now.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, it's 4 or 5 months away. Everybody's got plenty of time. Ha ha ha.
Have you looked at your proof copy? Is it ready to go?
I haven't even opened it. I literally, before I got it about an hour ago, right before I got on with you guys, I took the plastic off so it wouldn't be too reflective. So,
Gotcha.
No, I saw. Now they sold pre-release copies at Gen Con, and so I only saw the bits that we needed to demo with. I didn't actually take it out and look at it too closely. But they did an amazing job. If you guys have not seen it, it has clipped corners. The board has clipped corners, which kind of evokes the corner clipped papers from Expanse. But the reason they did that, I don't know if I can show you this or not. This is kind of cool, I think. So it has clipped corners so that you can reach into the box and pull the boards out with no problem, right?
That's some ergonomics right there.
Yep.
Way to go, old Yeller, whoever's running the operation there.
I know. It's attention to detail. So that I will say, working with them, their production is, their attention to details is really awesome. So little things like that you just kind of take for granted, they do a fantastic job.
I'm not sure if I agree with this analysis, but I'm not sure I disagree, and I'd have to think about it a little harder. And Dan, I assume you have not read the novel.
Starship Troopers, no. I was looking at getting an audiobook, but it's a pre-order. One is coming out soon, read by, I don't know, Ray Bray.
Who?
R.C. Bray. Read by R.C. Bray.
The name actually rings a bell. I'm not sure I know who that is off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
Yes, this was a feature in The Ice Pirates. What a fantastic film it is.
I guess I need to go watch Ice Pirates.
It's a fun. I mean, it's not it's not like Children of Men. Okay, you're gonna leave. Turn that off at the end with a smile on your face and say, "Boy, that was fun, and what a great time I had." So,
well, you know what we haven't talked at all about is Star Trek and Star Wars. In Star Trek, this is cool. My middle daughter started watching Picard season 3 with me, and for some reason liked it. And so she has been watching Strange New Worlds and loves it. I mean, just loves Strange New Worlds.
I haven't seen that much of it. I think I watched the first 5 episodes or so, and then the Paramount Plus subscription ran out, and I ran out of time. But what I saw of it, I liked a lot. It's very much a return to like the Star Trek format. It seems like the people running the show actually understand Star Trek, which is not the case with J.J. Abrams or whoever was in charge of the Discovery show, which it's got good things about it, but I wasn't crazy about it because they didn't seem to get Star Trek in very much a similar way to J.J. Abrams. Yeah,
I thought Discovery got a lot better as the seasons went on, but it took a lot to get through the first season, especially. So you have to kind of invest a lot to get anything out of it. But and then for what it's worth, the cartoon Lower Decks is phenomenal.
Oh yeah, no, Lower Decks is great actually. When it and Discovery were the only 2 shows that had come on to Paramount Plus so far, that was the better of the 2 shows by a lot. And they actually had the 2 of the actors, the voice actors who do voice work for Lower Decks, like showed up as like actual actors on Strange New Worlds.
Yes,
which I haven't seen. Don't tell me a word about it.
No, I won't tell you about it, but I will say that episode, and then within 2 episodes, I can't remember if it was before or after, I think it might have been after, was the musical episode on Strange New Worlds. And oh man, that was amazing. Next level.
I don't know if I'll have to see it. It is possible to make that work. The musical I know this is not sci-fi, but the musical episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer was friggin' brilliant.
Yeah, I think you'll like it. I mean, I went into it thinking this is going to be ridiculous, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah. Riverworld. Remember the sci-fi miniseries of Riverworld? It was ass. Ass.
What about the Dune series on Sci-Fi Channel?
I could rant for at least 25 minutes on this exact topic, actually. I think it has a lot of things going for it. There are also things that I didn't like. Everything that I didn't like more or less went away with the sequel miniseries, Children of Dune. They fixed all the problems I had, which I thought was absolutely terrific. The first one, I like it more than I dislike it. Let me put it that way. And I like the Denis Villeneuve stuff a lot. You'd love those, Dan. He's Canadian.
He's from Montreal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Did you see those, David?
Which one?
I did. Well, I saw the first one. I only vaguely remember it, though. I don't remember I mean, I remember it about as much as I remember the first Dune movie.
Okay, fair. I actually have a huge soft spot for that David Lynch Dune movie. It's got a lot of problems, but I love it anyway.
Yeah.
I wish Jodorowsky would have had a bit more control on his LSD there.
Control wasn't the problem, Dan. The problem was that he planned out this 12-hour movie that nobody was actually going to pay for, and the money ran out. And all they got done was some storyboards and some concept art.
You know what? Back to the original topic. You know what? Actual, no kidding, sci-fi board war game I have played that's really good is Nuclear Winter 68.
Is that from
it's
Flying Pig?
It's the Lock and Load or Flying Pig. I forget which one it is. I think it's Lock and Load.
I know the game you're talking about.
Lock and Load. It's not a great. It's not a great designed game, but oh boy, it's fun.
I'm prepared to believe that.
Come out, man. When the Black Hand, I love that game because you're playing basically a 2-player game, but there's a third faction that comes in anytime, anywhere, and they got monsters.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
And really cool. Isn't the premise that it was Himmler who took the Third Reich underground?
Something like that. I don't know the backstory because I've always played my buddies. So he brings it and sets it up. So I've never actually read the lore behind the game.
It's not a difficult game.
No. It is beer and pretzels war game with cool theme and crazy shit happening.
I like it.
Yeah.
David, have you played Star Wars Rebellion?
I have, yeah. So
Okay.
I've played it.
This without the serial numbers filed off.
Well, so here's the interesting thing. So I'll be interested to hear your opinion on this. The game is really good, except the combat. Jesus, good God. It gets into the slog, and it's like, man, I just want to play the game. I don't want to do this ridiculous. And apparently the expansion speeds up the combat significantly. But I remember playing it 4 players, which obviously, and I've also been told it's better to just play it 2. But I played it 4 players, and when combat started, I just had to walk away and said, let me know when it's over. So, but the game's really good.
I can't keep up with everything, Jeff Baylor. We got almost 80 people here tonight. So I have actually not played Star Wars Rebellion, nor do I own it. I actually would like this. I would not consider this a war game either, although it does have military or conflict elements. Eclipse.
Yeah.
It's very much a Euro design, but there is conflict in it. I bought the new edition. It's exceptionally fancy. I have done nothing with it except open the box and stare at it admiringly.
I've played the original. Thing, It is, yeah. I've played the original a few times. It's a little bit long for me. I have a pretty short attention span, so after about 2 hours, I start to kind of glaze off. But it's really good. It is a really good game, and you get it's sandboxy enough to let you do whatever you want. So, very good design for sure. But after a few, player count gets to more than 4, it starts to get a little bit long.
That's probably fair. Have you played the Firefly board game? Because a lot of people love that. A good friend of mine is his favorite board game of any kind.
Have you played it?
I have. I did not enjoy it actually.
So
I've only played it once.
I can count on one hand the number of games I've stopped playing in the course of playing the game, and that's one of them. It gets to your turn. I can't remember this has been probably about 8 years now since I was playing this, but I distinctly remember it getting to my turn. And I had to wait forever because it took forever to get my turn. And then I flip over a card to do a thing, and it says "Keep on flying," which was basically like you kind of get to move and you do nothing else in your turn, and your turn's over. And I was like, "This is bullshit. I'm out. I can't.
Sounds
I can't
sounds
do
like
this."
Space Combat Commander to me.
Yeah, it was not good. It was not good. I mean, I'm sure. I know a lot of people like it. I'm sure for the right people, it's the right game. But for me, it was not good.
You know what makes it really better? Cocaine. I'm guessing. I have no data to support that assertion, but
the problem with that is it's like I love the IP, right? Sure. I was in for like a cool, fun, adventure-y Firefly game, and good lord, it was not.
Yeah, and it's like a point-to-point trading game, and it's really rather dry. I found it kind of dry, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe with some lubrication that might help, or maybe some expansions, or maybe we use too many expansions. I don't know.
Well, that's where we should be the marketers for the board game. We should say Firefly, best with cocaine and lubrication.
That's a fantastic idea. I knew I was a marketing genius. I should really be making a 7-figure salary and working in marketing somewhere, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
You know what would actually be another interesting thing to try out, say, at Buckeye Game Fest next year, might be some of the classic GDW sci-fi war games like Imperium, which I think holds up extremely well today. Or somebody mentioned Blood Tree Rebellion, right? I picked that up relatively recently. That is an operational sci-fi game, but admittedly it's not space opera. It's like a ground game.
Yeah.
But it actually looks fairly intriiguing. Belcher is actually pretty cool too, I think.
I'm up for whatever. I'm definitely down for Traveler.
There you go.
And then whatever war game you think would be. So Freedom of the Galaxy. I mean, whatever.
You might find this one a little long, to be fair. The campaign, you don't have to play the campaign, but if you play the campaign, I would expect it to take a day or two. So, Dan, you had something?
When's Buckeye?
Late April, early May, somewhere in that neighborhood. I'm not sure I remember the dates. It's in Columbus.
Yeah, it's an hour for me.
Yeah, it's about an hour and 45 minutes for me. So, but for you, it's about 8 hours, Dan, as I recall from having calculated it previously. Yeah, this is Red Dust Rebellion. I'm looking forward to this.
Me too.
I forget who the designer is, but I
the guy who has the 3-minute board game channel.
Yep.
That's his game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it looks cool. So I'll, happy to check it out. And it does have a very Expanse type of vibe, right?
Yeah.
Course,
No, it looks really good. Jared Carmichael is his name.
Okay.
But yeah, I know him from 3 Minute Board Game YouTube
the
channel.
whole Mars is a colony and it's in rebellion against the cruel Earth authorities thing is kind of it's been thoroughly trod in the literature, but we haven't seen as much of it in games. This reminds me to ask, Dan, what's your favorite sci-fi TV show?
Firefly was one, that's for sure.
Okay, that's fair.
The latest one, I guess, Babylon 5, man.
There we go. There we go. David, what about you?
I mean, probably the first couple of seasons of Battlestar Galactica. Probably.
Those were really strong.
I don't know that, like, those first couple of seasons were just amazing. And it's really a shame how it ended. Yeah, I guess that would be it. I mean,
it's really
Firefly
a shame
was up
that it
there,
jumped the shark,
yeah,
to be honest.
Yeah.
Firefly didn't get a chance to end either. I mean, it did in Serenity, but no, I loved Babylon 5.
Babylon 5, man. My wife and I watched that whole bloody series, man. And my wife, you know what I'm saying?
I could be wrong about this, but I want to say, and bear in mind that show's like 30 plus years old at this point.
Unbelievable.
I think that's the last show where I actually sat down in front of the television when it was on and watched it, because nobody digests television like that anymore.
No.
So,
Now, there were some, if you go back and you watch the best of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, there's some really good episodes, but when you watch all of those shows through, you're like, well, there was a lot of rough stuff too, right?
Oh yeah, that's fair. I mean, certainly in Babylon 5, there's rough episodes, even in the later seasons sometimes. But several of those, I actually feel like the first season of Babylon 5 is a little bit underrated, to be honest. There's some really strong episodes, even in the first half dozen episodes. They very, very correctly gave, right away, in the first 4 or 5 episodes, you get a Londo episode and a Jakar episode, and they're both amazing. I thought this was very goofy. This was on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Lex.
Okay, it seems incredibly Canadian to me.
It is Canadian.
I'm aware of that. But
for whatever reason, I don't know the rights behind it, but for whatever reason, a lot of Canadian shows you cannot find on streaming in the U.S. So there was a show called Continuum that I actually enjoyed.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I thought it was good.
Was that the time travel one?
Yep. And
that
then,
was very good.
And
That's on Netflix, though.
It's not on Netflix in the U.S.
Well, it was at one point. Unless I'm thinking of a different show, which is not impossible.
And then there's this is not sci-fi, but there's X Company X Company was about Camp X-Ray in Canada during World War II. That's a Canadian show, but it's impossible to find here. It's a really good show.
I am looking up where to find Babylon 5, which
I've got all the
eventually
DVDs,
load.
man.
At some point. Yeah, you get them on Blu-ray now, actually. Space 1999. David, do you remember that?
I do not remember that.
Ooh,
No.
Yes,
this was
I have the series.
I think a British-American co-production with Martin Landau and Barbara Bain, and it felt very British. Let me put it that way.
I'll let you go. I'm on the live show.
I can't even get anything to load here. I don't know what's going on. At least StreamYard hasn't crashed on me. The spaceships were pretty cool in Space 1889, by the way.
So what time period is that?
Space 1999.
Space 1999. Space 1889 is a completely different thing.
Yes,
it was probably made in the around 1980, I want to say. It was much better than Galactica 1980, I can assure you.
It wasn't that yet. Who wrote that? Not Roddenberry, Space 1999.
No, that was the claymation people.
Really?
Yes.
But isn't that Ray Harryhausen?
No. That's stop motion animation.
Yeah, stop motion.
The people that did, I can't look anything up here. I don't know what's going on. I can't remember. Sylvia and Jerry Anderson. Yeah, those are the claymation people. I think claymation or puppets or something like that. They also did Space 1999.
Yeah, and he did UFO.
Oh yeah, that's true. That I never saw that though. I remember Space 1999.
Speaking of Harryhausen, I showed my children the skeleton scene from Jason and the Argonauts recently.
Which is fantastic, by the way.
It still holds up, man. It is still amazing. It
totally
is just amazing.
Terrific movie,
It's amazing. It's a good movie, but that scene holds up. It just holds up. And when you watch the guys fighting the skeletons and you realize this was made in the 60s, you're like, wow, how is that? That's mind-blowing.
Yeah, the Sinbad movies also had Harryhausen effects, and some of those. Not only are some of those good, but in one of them, I think it's the Golden Voyage of Sinbad, but I might be wrong about this. The evil sorcerer is played by Tom Baker. It's fantastic.
No. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's the Doctor Who's, man.
That's true too. Yeah, I guess it's science fiction. I don't know.
It has to be, right? What else would it be?
It is, but I always it always feels like kind of its own thing to me, right? Because it's got such it's got a feel that really isn't replicated anywhere else. I don't.
It's like Coronation Street, but in space.
I have never seen Coronation Street and have no immediate plans to do so. So it sounds terrible. This is actually true. The Kolchak the Night Stalker with Darren McGavin, which I have seen
loved it.
One episode of hugely influential on the X-Files.
The X-Files.
Do you have a favorite Doctor, David?
I've never watched Doctor Who.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Well,
I'm not a Doctor Who person. What do you call people who are fans of Doctor Who? I'm sure there's a name. Whovians? Yeah, I've never.
Well, I'm sorry to say it's a substantial project to get caught up on since the thing's been on for like 65 years.
I don't think I'm going to get caught up. I think I'm going to have to miss it.
Yeah. I love Tom Baker, but I also really liked John Pertwee, the third Doctor. I thought he was really pretty cool.
His name is John Pertwee.
John Pertwee. And in fact, Sean Pertwee, who played Alfred on the Gotham TV series, is his son. And who was also in Event Horizon, by the way, if you've ever seen that.
I enjoyed Event Horizon.
Sean Pertwee. I did not. I thought it was a complete ass biscuit.
Well, it was a Disney production, right?
I don't think so.
What am I thinking of?
It's got an awful lot of nudity and gore to be a Disney production. Are you thinking of The Black Hole?
That's what I'm thinking of.
I saw that in the theaters. That was let's say it was interesting in some ways. Interesting. And Maximilian Schell was pretty cool in it. Robert Forster was pretty cool in it. Ernest Borgnine was terrible in it. So that's a typical Ernest Borgnine performance.
I love Ernest Borgnine.
Yeah, he was good in certain things, but not that.
Did you see when there was the 9/11 fiasco that happened in the States? Sean Penn was chosen to do a short on 4 shorts that they showed on TV or something, and Ernest Borgnine was one of the skits. He was there, and it was fantastic.
I'll have to take your word for that.
Very touching, very touching. Space
1899 has Ian McShane. I didn't know that, but there's a movie called Life Force. It's a British science fiction film from the 80s, which has in a relatively modest part a younger Patrick Stewart. If you were approximately my age when you saw that movie, then it will have left an impression, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes, it did. It did.
Okay, yeah. Not a great movie, though. Ian McShane was also in an episode of Babylon 5, as was the dude that played Ilya in Man from U.N.C.L.E. David McCallum was in an episode of Babylon 5 as well. And hell, Michael York was in an episode of Babylon 5 as a crazy guy who thought he was King Arthur.
I don't remember.
So fantastic show. Fantastic show. Well, we kind of stayed on topic. I'll tell you what, my favorite Charlton Heston performance. David, what's your favorite Charlton Heston performance? Because there's some good ones. I think we can agree, including some science fiction ones like Planet of the Apes or the Omega Man.
I mean, the thing that I remember is Planet of the Apes.
Sure.
I mean, that's the one that stands out to me probably more than any, right? Because I remember that as a kid, right? So kind of early kid.
Was something. Yeah, that was something, man. I mean, everything gelled in that movie. The music was fantastic, man. Fantastic.
That's a good movie. I think that's better movie. I think there's a more of an appreciation for how good that movie, the original Planet of the Apes, was now. I've actually read the book. The book's not that good. My favorite Charlton Heston performance, this one I'm coming out of left field on.
It's people.
Not that one. That's a good one too. Also, Get Your Hands Off Me, You Damn Dirty Ape. That's another classic Charlton Heston. But no, my favorite Charlton Heston performance of all time is as the player king in Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet. And I realize that is not a science fiction film, but he's absolutely terrific as the player king in that.
You know, man.
Ooh, this is a terrific movie, by the way. This is also not science fiction. David, have you seen this movie?
I have not.
With Kirk Douglas as is he playing Ragnar there? No, Ernest Borgnine is playing Ragnar. If you've seen the Vikings TV show, the main guy, the underwear model, that's the main character of the show. He's playing Ragnar Harry Breeks or something like that. That's the same character. He's an actual historical individual mentioned in a couple of the sagas. That's the character played by Ernest Borgnine in this movie, The Vikings.
So what
60s.
time? Okay, yeah, I have
late
not
60s,
seen it.
maybe early 70s, something like that. I want to say it was before Spartacus. I want to say. So, and he was good in this movie actually. Ragnar Lothbrok. Lothbrok means Harry Breeks. So in any case. All right, folks, I think we've had about our fill this evening. We've more or less stayed on the topic of science fiction, even if we didn't necessarily restrict that to war games. But I want to thank David Thompson. Please do check out his upcoming game, Undaunted 2300 Callisto. Did I get that wrong?
Can you show it again, David?
Is
show
it 2200 or 2300?
2200.
2200.
Who knows what'll happen by 2300?
That's
That
true.
looks like a big box, man.
It's big. It's big, and it's also ridiculously heavy because there's 4 boards in it. Every scenario has its own board, so there's 4 double-sided boards.
I was hoping you were going to tell us there was a board for each of the 4 Galilean moons.
Oh, that'd be cool.
There's some expansion material for you. How about that?
So 4 boards. This is not a budget-friendly game there.
So here's the last thing I'll talk about it, which is I think was an interesting choice, and it shows Osprey's commitment to the production. So we wanted, if you've played Undaunted, one of the only drawbacks, and Undaunted is usually presented as being like an entry-level war game, right?
Sure.
A crossover game. And so the only thing that's really kind of off-putting from an accessibility perspective is it's got modular tiles. And so when you open up the book, you have to find the tiles, you have to build the board and all of that. And we wanted to cut down a lot on that. And so we pitched them the idea of let's go with just actual boards instead.
David, I got to tell you, having set up Case Blue, this does not seem like a serious impediment to me.
Well, it's all relative. It's all relative, right?
But these are the biggest counters I've ever seen.
But the cool thing about having the boards, the idea was to increase or to improve setup time. But the side benefit means that instead of having modular tiles, which means they have to be able to play anything or support anything from a scenario, every board is custom designed for each scenario. So the art is custom to it, etc. So there's just a lot of really cool like artistic and gameplay benefits.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense to me, right? You know, I think there is value in accessibility and frankly ease of setup too, right? I mean, if you can shave 5 minutes off a 20-minute setup, that's substantial for some players. Not for the Case Blue people, but for some players. So, but there's nothing wrong with that. We should all be enjoying what we want to enjoy and not fretting about what other people are into. So, I mean, it took 20 man hours more or less to set up Case Blue, just for the posterity.
You know, sake. just that.
Because I counted.
No, but I mean, you need roadies. Well,
we had 4 players, so it took 4 people, basically 5 hours to set it up.
Wow.
So
that's a day's work.
That's a day's gaming. That's unless you're at a convention where you can spend the entire day at it. Yeah, pretty much. All right, folks, we got to wrap it up here. We are almost 5 minutes over, and it's almost Dan's bedtime. So we have to can it. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Do come in next week where we will have a quite special array of guests. So, and once again, thank you, David, for coming out tonight and bailing me out of the asinine situation that I put myself in by double booking people.
No problem.
All right. Everybody have a great rest of the night, and we'll see you all again soon. I got to find the outro because I haven't fixed that yet.